So welcome everyone again to the Phil. So the debate tonight is the Liferaft debate. So we imagine there's been a flood and we can only save one building. So it's between the Arts Block and the Hamilton. Just to go through the standing order of the speeches tonight. So all speeches will be 7 minutes in length. The first minute and the last minute of each speech is what's known as protected time, which means that audience members are not, and as well as members on the bench are not open to offer points of information. Outside this time, between the first and the 6th minute, you are able to offer points of information. In general, we encourage general audience participation. So if you hear something that you like, shout "hear, hear," and if you hear something you don't like, you can shout "shame." Just turn your attention to the arch returns on your benches. So this will go towards deciding which building we're going to be saving. That'll be announced afterwards after reception. And also you can put a mark next to the name of the lecturer that you feel won the debate overall as well. Just to go through the speakers that we have on the Hamilton side, we have John Stalker in mathematics, Sylvia Draper in chemistry, James Lucy in medicine, and Richard Porter in biochemistry. And for the arts block, we have Matthew Causey in drama, Peter Stone in political science, Darragh Downs in English literature, and then our devil's advocate arguing that no building should be saved is Hannah Beresford. So with any further ado, we're going to begin the debate. So I'd like to call on John Stalker to open the case for the Hamilton bench.
So good evening. Since I'm the first speaker, I feel I should probably warn most people here look too young to realize that this is in fact the way Trinity does its budgeting. So, well, minus the transparency and the democracy part. So if any of the lecturers run screaming from the room, this is flashbacks to the annual budgeting cycle. It's not just something lecturers do. Okay, so the waters are rising, as you can see, very quickly. And whatever anyone says to reassure you, it would be prudent to assume that the worst has happened. The dead have risen, Trump is president, Jedward have won the Eurovision. The world as we know it is ending. We are, as we're accustomed to say in the States, up excrement creek without a paddle, quite literally it seems. So to help and guide you through the coming catastrophe, you have chosen to save a bunch of Trinity lecturers. Doesn't sound like a good idea to me either, but whatever. Soon you'll realize, if you haven't already, that you should probably have saved the library or maybe the buttery. But they've sunk beneath the waters, so whom do you want to save? The truth is, it hardly matters. Whatever any of us may say to you, none of us here will be of much use to you, except possibly as a source of protein. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we've always been useless. In the wonderful world we've left behind, each of us had some sort of role to play. But to save any of us now would be a bit like saving a component of a jet engine. It might be ingeniously designed, it might be well crafted, but you can't use it to reconstruct the rest of the engine, let alone a whole airplane, and even if you could, you don't have an airport. So like the jet engine component, the best we can be is a bitter reminder of the world you've left behind. I should say in our defense, university lecturers are hardly unique in this. The jobs most people have, I guess I should say had, they make sense only as a part of a very complex structure which is developed over centuries, and they're pretty much pointless without that structure. There are exceptions. There are people whose background fits them ideally for the world you're entering into. Subsistence farmers, for example, gatherers of scrap, violent thugs. You may have noticed these are the people who've been living in a post-apocalyptic hellscape all along. So this is not what I was meant to be telling you, of course. My colleagues are relying on me to convince you to save them, and I don't want to see them drown. Well, not all of them. Perhaps not even most of them. So to avoid letting the side down, I feel I really ought to claim that we have some sort of unique selling point. So for example, lately I've been working on general relativistic kinetic theory. I probably know as much about that as anyone on the planet, so if that's what your small band of hunter-gatherers needs, then I didn't think that was going to work. Okay, so we fall back on plan B. Okay, so bullshit doesn't get you very far in mathematics. We're accustomed to stating things cleanly and precisely. And maybe that's what we can offer. So basically we're useless, and we know it, but we're not going to try to convince you otherwise because we wouldn't even really know how. So is that enough to save the School of Mathematics? Well, probably not. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, this is very similar to Trinity's budgeting process. And so I've seen this movie before. I know how it turns out. So on behalf of myself and my colleagues, I'd just like to say goodbye and good luck.
I think it was Einstein who said our technology has exceeded our humanity. And to our esteemed colleagues from the STEM, from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, I plead with the House, do not follow their failed fantasy of progress. There's a destiny of the human that may have been lost in the technological. And the question is where has all of this progress left us? What has it done for us? Is there a sense of corrupted materialism that we have here, that we need to try and find our way through? From the Industrial Revolution, the mechanization and control of labor, to the corporate capitalism of bureaucratic dehumanization of the mid-19th century, to the period of our own now digital culture, of which we find ourselves completely embedded in the technological. We are now, thanks to Facebook, etc., both the product and the consumer. We are the labor within each element of that. My question is, where has this left us? This is where we've been led, to the birth of the Anthropocene, this period of history in which man has the greatest influence over the climate and over the entire environment. And what can we do about that? You might call it not the Anthropocene, but call it the Technocene. Because it is STEM, I am arguing, that has led us to this particular impasse. It's important to remember Aeschylus's great play, Prometheus Bound. And in it you have, with Prometheus, the one who has stolen fire, has stolen technology as a gift to the humans. And yet, he steals it from Hephaestus. He is the god of technology, the one who builds the machines of the gods. And he returns to Prometheus with violence and with might in order to pin Prometheus to that wall. It is in that mythology one truth that we learn that this technology is not our destiny of humans. We become the sex organs of the technology. We become answering their persuasion. We do their bidding. The destiny of the human being is lost within that structure. I think we should rewrite Plato's Republic. It's in Book 10 that he threw the poets out of his utopian culture. Said that this duplicitous culture and representations are the problems. It might very well be that we could throw away the technicians, the scientists, the engineers, the mathematicians for their duplicitous representations, their technologies of forgetting, which rob us from our destiny, our humanity, our thoughts. So what am I going to offer instead? In the arts block, in the arts and humanities and social sciences. Well, it's not going to be another poet or painter or playwright. I don't think we need to hear another poorly worded poem or awkwardly painted oil canvas or another melodramatic play on a decrepit proscenium arch. No, what I want to argue that is housed in the arts and the humanities and the social sciences are first things, first thoughts, the capacity to learn to think, to concept, the idea. We have to begin there. Perhaps in that way, we won't continue to relive the nightmare of the 20th century. We wouldn't need to recite where STEM has taken us in this time, would we? Perhaps we need to begin again. Perhaps a post-human consciousness in this apocalypse that we find ourselves is the appropriate time to rebuild from the ground up. And the only way we can do that is to learn to think and to learn to embrace the idea, the concept. And that is what's housed in that building. And if you let that drown, there's no civilization can grow from that. Thank you.
I completely disagree with my dramatic friend. He seems to think that thought, concepts, and conscience lie only in the arts block. Have you ever been in the science block? Have you ever realized that concepts, ideas, thoughts? I don't know, but he actually... No, but I think in Greek mythology there's a Minotaur. He doesn't actually exist. So I'm a bit worried that we have to go back so far and believe in the Greek gods before we can actually think. But anyway, I digress because I'm busy. So I'll introduce you. Hello, my name is Sylvia and I'm a chemist. Well, I was the last time I looked. I am one of the heroines of the Hamilton side of the house. We are not dramatic actors on a fictitious stage. We're the dramatic actors of real life. So let me tell you about what we can do, not what we can say, not what we can reword or conjure up from the past. Now, let me show you. Change is our bread and butter. That's what we deal in. So we can convert a muddy puddle into pure water. It's only carbon dioxide, it won't kill you, you're breathing it out. We can treat illness. We can understand and manipulate the world around us so that we can produce fuel that burns more efficiently, fabrics that dry more quickly, construct buildings that are more environmentally friendly, and produce practical solutions to the problems that living on this planet brings about. If we go back to our man here, we'll be in a loincloth and digging the ground. If there is a disaster, you need us to adjust to your changed environment and to deal with the new physical challenges that are facing you. As scientists, we're able to respond to change. Remember, it's our bread and butter. So I'm a chemist. I think I've always been one. I've been mixing substances, making reactions, and pulling the legs of three-dimensional objects for as long as I can remember. I just didn't realize at the time that these were preparatory steps in my lifelong career as a chemist. What is chemistry? Chemistry is the here and now. If there is chemistry between us, then things are looking up. There is no political baggage. There is no history to churn up. Chemistry is the study of matter and how it reacts. And matter is any substance with mass. So chemistry is the study of all substances, including those that make up you, me, and the planet. In the form of the Big Bang, chemistry arrived, and it's older than mankind and older than Earth itself. In truth, life began with a molecule of water, a byproduct from the formation of stars. And water is the giver of life. So let's think about this. If we're to survive as human beings, we must attend first to our basic needs, like water, food, protection, shelter, energy. And who can respond to these needs? Do you have my skills? Can you purify water created by the flood, or are you stuck? Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. The arts will tell you they have language, the art of communication on their side. They have the to be or not to be. It's just that they're going to whip us very fast onto the side of the not to be. You see, I don't even thank the arts for language.
Shame!
I thank survival and evolution for keeping us alive on this planet long enough to have brains capable of meaningful conversation. We mark the development of survival on this planet not in terms of the development of language, but on our understanding of the planet and the raw materials it has to offer. We moved from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age to the Iron Age to the titanium, nuclear, molecular age, and we did it through the acquisition of practical knowledge. It was the influx of new knowledge that enabled us to make those progressions. So what new knowledge? Well, it was the knowledge that if you mix copper and tin, you can melt metal and create a substance that was stronger and less brittle than stone. And by 500 BC, we had created fires that were strong enough that we could now extract ore, iron ore, and create weapons now that were stronger yet again. Can you extract iron from its ore? With 1 part charcoal, 1 part sulfur, and 2 parts of a mineral, saltpeter, I can make gunpowder. But can you? Do you understand why a small amount of urine will improve it? No, probably not. You see, it's not just the case of having the recipe. You need to have done the experiment. So no, my bibliophilic friends. Oh, lovers of words. What is science? It's a word that comes from the Latin, scientia, meaning knowledge. The scientific method is the acquisition of knowledge by trial and error. It is inherently practical, and you need us. You need evidence-based conclusions. That's what you need. Every tribe had its witch doctor, this mythical creature. Every high street has a chemist. And why? Because when you go on a journey to foreign climes and you're not quite sure what you're going to need, you go prepared. You bring sunblock, malaria tablets, paracetamol, and probably Motilium and Arete. Do you bring a dose of political science? And a book on Shakespeare? No, you don't. If we're truly in the middle of a disaster, you need scientists to dig you out. Anyway, let's face it. There's a good chance, but by the time the art students have realised that the windows of the arts block don't open, it'll be too late. There are 26 letters in the alphabet, and from them we create words that we can contain in a dictionary. Try confining chemistry to a dictionary. There are not 26, but 118 elements. A subset of them is in each and every substance on Earth. We don't write them on a flat page. We mix them in three-dimensional space. We've got to the point that we're now in a position to successfully reproduce and even better the molecules created by nature herself. We improve not only your chance of life, but your quality of life. Science is vast, chemistry is vast. You're so lucky. Well, I'm not quite sure, but you're so lucky, I think, to have maths, medicine, chemistry, and biochemistry on your side. And if you don't have the right people on your side, you're in trouble. So I know how to extract strychnine. Strychnine is a poison. Don't eat it. Use it to kill vermin or to kill your prey. So the arts will tell you that they know how people interact. No, they don't. We're actually just following a chemical trail of pheromones, like chemical messengers, a mixture of aldehydes and acetates in different ratios. You know, mothers produce them so that their new form instants are guided to know where to feed. Do the art students even know the science of reproduction? They spend so much time on their appearance. Do they know why attractive humans often have more symmetrical features? It's because your cells divided evenly. You're going to make a good mate. The arts will tell you they bring colour to life. No, they don't. The colour of orange is a result of a long-chain carbon molecule called carotenoid. The arts will tell you that they help you think more deeply to feel better in yourself. No, they don't. It's a chemical reaction. The body's response to the release of oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Biochemistry gave you Viagra. Chemical gave you fermentation and alcohol. Walter White gave you sky blue, crystallized methamphetamines, and a good deal of entertainment. So in this new society that you're going to build, where things are going to be better than before, you'll need a next generation of scientists, people that know how to design molecules that can absorb, store, and generate new sources of energy, probably using water. Handy. That can fabricate devices that use sunlight to give us electricity, or understand how DNA is damaged and repaired. People that have the skills needed not only to solve problems, but to avoid them. And so I leave you with this thought. If you want to build a meth lab, see diamonds in the sky, then you'll need us scientists from the Hamilton, and you'll say goodbye to the arts block.
Okay. I'm told the question to be settled is whether or not Hamilton or the arts block should be saved here. I probably should start out by pointing out that political science is actually based in College Green. Which, kind of hoping the students who are studying political science who invited me here knew about, so. But to me, I think that suggests that I am bringing a level of serious impartiality and gravitas to this conversation, and so I encourage you to treat everything I have to say as the wisdom of Solomon. So, in terms of the question of saving the humanities and the social sciences, I think there's a very simple point I'd like to make, especially in defense of my own field, political science. It goes like this. Politics is hard. It's really important. We're starting to figure it out. So do you really want to screw things up now? So let me break that all down for you. Let's start at the beginning. Politics is hard. Natural sciences, not quite so hard. Physics, tinker toys. You all know I don't have tinker toys in Ireland, but trust me, they're really, really simple. What is classical mechanics? Come on now. You take one large rock in a vacuum, and then you take another large rock in a vacuum, and you set them next to each other, and you figure out what's going to happen, you know? Yes.
Are you sure that's what
Did you want me to elaborate? I could elaborate, but there is timekeeping to be done here. You know, I'm just saying. Just throwing out there. Anyway, it does get harder than the mechanics. I understand. Sometimes, eventually, they said after they had a couple of centuries to figure out the big rocks. They broke the rocks down into littler things, and they found those little things there, and they said, okay, there are these little things, these atom things, and we can put them together in all kinds of cool ways, which are really cool, I admit. That we're getting to chemistry, and now we're getting to something that's a little bit more interesting, I am the first to admit. But then you take the chemistry and you say, well, now hang about, we can take some of these kind of combinations of these little things, and we can and then we notice that some of them combine together in ways that they replicate, and they make more of those little things, and then you've got some biology on your hands there. And all right, now things are starting to get a little more interesting. We're getting into something serious. Okay, now let's take some of those little things that replicate, and they're called cells, and we'll put a couple of trillion of them together, and we'll call that a human being, which got a brain composed of a couple of billion of them, and we'll try to figure out how that thing works. And now you're getting into, all right, now we're getting into psychology. Now we're getting into something that's worth taking seriously. Now let's take a few, billion of those trillion celled organisms, and we'll figure out how they interact if you put them all together on one of those big rocks. And now you're doing political science. In the immortal words of Thomas Hobbes, this shit just got real. And we are just getting to a point where, we actually are starting to learn some general human lessons about how these billions of multi-trillion-celled organisms interact with each other, and actually maybe how we can actually design institutions that will figure out the various things that they do to and with each other in a way that minimizes the amount of harm that they do to and with each other. You think this is needed in the world today? Well, there's the United States. I can just stop there. I don't even need a joke. I can just leave it at that. And there are probably some Brits in the audience here, so don't you get too smug either. I'm just saying. Britain right now, it's like that friend you had in school when he realized you were going to school dressed like a total nerd, and he put on a terrible looking outfit to go with you so you wouldn't be the only one who was looking stupid when you went there. So that's thanks, Britain. I appreciate that. So it's very kind, very thoughtful of you. So we really do need to get this right. And when it comes to politics, there's one thing I am very, very sure of. Contrary to what some people have said here, we have most definitely not had enough of experts. And we are starting to acquire those experts, and they're badly needed even in the societies that count as the relative success stories. I mean, that's the frightening thing to contemplate here. The United States and Britain, they're some of the success stories in the world right now. I'm just pointing that out there, you know, just to put some things in perspective. So we have people who are really starting to get a handle on some of these questions. Questions like, all right, what are the things you need to actually produce a society? You need to try to figure out how do you get impartiality. You need to figure out how do you get things like the rule of law. You need to figure out how do you prevent corruption. These things, yes, please.
And human beings that are alive.
You do need human beings that are alive. We might need some pheromones along the way. I will be the first to concede that when it comes to explaining the United States, what's going on right now, pheromones might have an important part to play in that. I would be remiss if I did not make that concession. So, where was I? Okay, so yes, these are the relative success stories that we are trying to deal with here. We're trying to figure out some things about politics. We've made some progress here, and so where I'm going to close is with a line that was said in the United States in an election a little while ago. It featured the United States President Jimmy Carter facing a tough re-election challenge, even within his own party, because he was perceived as being a bit of an incompetent. And the line was that at the convention, all of his supporters were running around yelling, Don't dump him now. He's beginning to get the hang of it. You know, so we're really starting to get the hang of this figuring out politics thing. We're going to be making progress from there. You don't have the physicists; they'll figure out the big rocks thing again. You know that. Don't worry about that. But the politics thing, you don't want to dump the progress we've made so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Auditor, sir, and thank you very much, Madam Secretary, for the introduction earlier on. I just want to clarify that I am on the side of STEM. I mean, what happened at this university that they reduced it to a part of a tree? And HSS, I think that's a car ferry. We're being asked here to divide ourselves. The organ I might wrap myself around would probably not be the heart, as my general. It probably wouldn't be. I have to tell you that the organ that is my favorite, well, certainly this is my second favorite organ, is the brain, folks. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, a little bit quicker than that. For go. It's like the fact is, I am a psychiatrist. I am a mental health specialist. I'm somebody who's worked in the medicine of the mind, and I weep for what I hear tonight. We are being asked to have the thing that is so inimical to wellness, the antithesis of imagination. But God bless the Phil, because tonight the Phil has asked us to do the thing that really makes us human. It is to imagine a world that is better. All right, we've got to go through a Holocaust for it. Sure, there's only one place on the raft, but that is something that neither of my sides here has understood. There is only one place on the raft. So I have here Prometheus and his thoughts, and here we have the chemist and her diuretics, or the antidiarrheals. It's not a great choice. I'm not really feeling good about this. But I offer you a better choice. I offer you scientists who can think, and I offer you chemists who can make poetry. And you have them in a university that has the idea of imagination as center to it. You walk in every day past Goldsmith's statue, a great human mind, a great thinker, a great poet. And what was he? He was a doctor, folks. And so he brought science and art. He brought medicine and music. And he did so with Keats and Borodin and Gogarty, and all of them Trinity men as far as I'm concerned. The fact is we divide the mind and we divide society at our peril. And we fail to imagine a future world. We lose hope. I look around me here and I see this wonderful opportunity. I am thrilled to be here. It's such a privilege to be here with you. Wonderful young people, the brightest of your age. This is a craven attempt to flatter you into voting for my speech, but I make no apology for that. I simply say that I'm surrounded by the brightest, the best, the most beautiful of our generation. It's going to be a long night, folks. And I want to say that the despair of saying we are a hopeless faculty is none credit to us. The reality is we are the only faculty that can unite. The great philosopher Theodor Adorno said that after the Holocaust there would be no poetry. Well, there's only one seat on this raft, so who's going to give you your poetry? It's got to be a scientist who can sing. It's got to be a doctor who can make music. It's got to be somebody who can bring poetry, and we have all of this for the generation. The list is as long as your Google. There's no question that we have integrative and a holistic sense, which is mental health. Do you know that every single one of you in this room has somebody in your family right at this moment in mental health distress? It is the only health issue that matters, and it is the determining factor for your future. It is the Holocaust we're facing, and 1 in 6 of us will have a mental health challenge this year. Every person in this room could raise their hand with me right now and say, I have a family member in mental distress now, and that is the issue that needs to be addressed. I ask you to integrate the future. I ask you to bring these two things together. I ask you to imagine a better world where we can actually bring together the mind and the science, the spirit and the poetry, the drama and the hope, the youth and the beauty, and the future which is positive and restorative. Every day I see people in the bleakest of dark hours, in the despair of hopelessness, and the future is that they bring together their science and their humanity, their drama and their history. And they don't abandon one for the other. They realize that in humanity, in this planet, they are together. I ask you to imagine this world, and for you young people, not us crusty old farts, but you young, beautiful, bright people, to make that world right, you have to put a physician on the raft, sure, but we're imagining a world where each of you is that integrative physician. Each of you is that poet who can make medicine, that scientist who can sing, that physicist who fizzes with energy for future. I want you to join with me. Join the great food scientist in the sky, the great chocolatier of the heavens. I'm talking about, who am I talking about? You've got to know who I'm talking about. It's Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. I want you to take a breath. Make a wish. Count to 3. And come with me. And you'll be in a world of the imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin. You see, there's a second verse. You see, all the scientists sing. We'll begin, take a spin. In a world of my creation, everything will defy explanation. If you want to see paradise, take a look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. I see. Nothing like the world of the imagination. You can there be free if you only wish it to be. Imagine it for us and make it happen, folks. Put a scientist on the raft.
Thanks very much. I'm kind of wishing I hadn't turned up this evening. I'm not in a good state. I stayed up to watch the presidential debate last night, which I think didn't quite bring this cataclysm we're talking about quite the step closer. Some feared it would, but we're getting there. I'm on 3 hours sleep and I'm in shite form. It's been a lousy week. The Nobel Prize for Literature went to Bob effing Dylan, whereas we all know that the greatest poet of the 20th century was John Winston Lennon. I don't need these glasses. I'm posing, and that's okay. But I'm mad as hell. I was invited to this debate under really entirely false pretenses. For one thing, you never told me that one of the debaters on the other team would be Fintan O'Toole. I would have prepared a proper speech if I had known this. For another thing, there are, by my last count, 3 of us from the arts building on this side, and now I know you think we arts people can't be funky with mathematics, but let me tell you, we have some pretty sophisticated algorithms of our own, and mine tell me that there are 4 muggles over this side of the house. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Chairman and all the members of the Crooked Phil, you've been had, because I've come here under false pretenses. You may have noticed there was some undergraduates near the back there with rather bewildered expressions on their face when they heard that I am a lecturer in English. I am indeed a teaching fellow in English, but I'm also a teaching fellow in German. And I'm here to demand double speaking time, just like our chemist friend did. Now, my decision to kind of split between English and German. We all know that the English and the Germans have a rich and productive friendship over the centuries. Did you know they even played a game of football on Christmas Day once? It was very beautiful. But the reason I am half and half between English and German, it goes back to a key strategic decision I made in the days before even LinkedIn. This was a decision to put personal safety at the heart of my educational and career decisions. I was very worried at the time by what then was called global warming. Now it's called climate change. Way to cover your asses, scientists. But I decided that after visiting some university campuses in the city, that the optimal course of study for me would be TSM English and German at Trinity. Why? Because, well, the School of English is on the 4th floor of the arts block. I was worried about rising tides, and I thought to myself, very unlikely that the water is going to reach up to the 4th floor. Very unlikely. But if it does, the German department is on the 5th floor of the arts building. And since then, I have pursued this rather promiscuous, not to say bi-curious academic lifestyle with no little tenacity, so that now I work on the 4th floor in the School of English, and the 5th floor in the German department, and my feckin' office is on the 6th floor. So if the flood happens, I go first. My first protocol is the English office. Water starts coming in, I'm up a floor to the German office. Water starts coming in, I'm up to my office on the 6th floor. Water starts coming in, I'm fucked. But you, Mr. Chairman, you will be editing this video before it goes up on YouTube, won't you? Otherwise, I will be introduced somewhere next week as an ex-teaching fellow. It's a bit like the nun, you know. Did you ever hear about the nun? She stubbed her toe against the pew in the chapel one morning, and she said, "Damn, I should have looked where I was going. Shit, I shouldn't have said damn. Fuck it, I should never have become a nun." But yeah. The question we're being asked to talk about here this evening, arts versus Hamilton. Now, it would be very easy for me just to say that the arts people should be saved because arts people are more interesting than science people. So that's what I'm going to say. Arts people are just more interesting than science people. As family members, as friends, as enemies, as romantic partners, as sexual partners, as companions on bus journeys. But I want to go beyond that. I want to make it clear, I do not believe that the arts building should be saved on aesthetic grounds, at least not on immediately aesthetic grounds. Both the arts building and the Hamilton are monstrous carbuncles. They are hideous erections. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. When those of us who work with literature, when we plug in a pair of earplugs into our ears and open a book, We are oblivious to the car park aesthetics in the seminar room around us. We are quite oblivious. Why? Because we live and move and have our being in that magical zone where the wardrobe meets the snow. We use primary text as a portal to secondary worlds. Not at this time, or any other, Finton. Thank you. I want to make the case for keeping the arts building, not because of the aesthetics of the arts building, but because of the aesthetics in the arts building. Reading for us is a form of lucid dreaming. These people, they work for the Ministry of the Exterior. We work for the Ministry, I'm not pointing at you, we work, kind of. We work for the Ministry of the Interior. Academics should be more preoccupied with the interior. For one thing, it has been said that politics is show business for ugly people. If that is the case, then academics is politics for very ugly people. So it is important to move within. Our kingdom in literature, literary studies, is not of this world. Now, in the event in which a cataclysmic flood comes along and takes out the Hamilton, and there are survivors from the arts building, well, I have a plan. We will find ourselves at a very difficult pass. Today will be a difficult space. Yesterday will be gone, today will be here, but we will still have one thing, amórach. Now, to those of you who are official Trinity tour guides, amórach is an Irish word. Irish is a language which... I have a plan to turn Trinity College, rebrand Trinity College, the next day after the flood, when all the colours come out. We will rebrand Trinity as the United States of Amórach, and I will make Amórach great again. We're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. Beautiful wall. I don't know, maybe the most beautiful wall ever built. 271 architects have endorsed this wall. They said it's possibly the greatest wall ever built. This wall, folks, will keep out the science people. It will keep out the business people. It will keep out the engineers. It will keep out the technologists. Why? Because most of them are murderers, rapists, drug dealers, and I don't know, maybe even young Fine Gaelers. We don't know. We will make Amórach great again. We have a glorious opportunity. We're going to take this opportunity and we're going to grab it by the scruff of the neck. The scruff of the neck. In the event, I know what you sciencey factionistas over here are thinking. It may well be that those who survive in the arts building will only survive for a few hours more. Well, let's run with that. Let's run with that. Let's go with the doom scenario, the mother of all fears. We only have hours left. I want each of you here in the audience, each of you good people, to ask yourself, who do you want to spend those last hours and minutes with? Do you want to spend it with a chemist who points to this and says, this is our bread and butter? I don't think so. Do you want to spend it with some mullet-headed mathematician, not you, with poor personal hygiene, not you, who barks quadratic equations as the water comes up? I don't think so. I don't think so. And don't talk to me about biochemists. I once went out with a biochemist. Beautiful person. We had some lovely times together. But every time we would get into a row about life or love or food or where to go dancing, he would say to me, sweetie, I'm a biochemist. And I do know what I'm talking about. Okay? So, trust me, you don't want a biochemist in your company when you're under stress. How will I spend those last moments? I can't speak for any of my colleagues, but I will promise you one thing, I'll shut the fuck up. I offering you some Snapchat timeline on this great doom-laden affair. Now, I will just shut up. I won't talk shop. I won't speak to you about the fascinating semiotics of the semicolon in the early letters of T.S. Eliot. I'm going to send you the PDF. No, I won't talk about that. I will spend my last moments, well, either reciting my favourite poem. It's said to be by John Donne. 1, 2, 3, kick me in the knee. 1, 2, Rolex, kick me in the other knee. But what I would probably go for, given how sombre the occasion will be the imperishable words of John Milton, who was grief-stricken at the death of a dear friend who drowned. And I will spend my last moments being quiet and reading those words. Weep no more, woeful shepherds. Weep no more, for Lycidas your sorrow is not dead. Sunk though he be beneath the watery floor, so sinks the day star in the ocean bed, and yet anon repairs his drooping head, and tricks his beams, and with muse-spangled ore flames in the forehead of the morning sky. So Lycidas sunk low, but mounted high, through the dear might of him that walked the waves.
We'd like to thank Darren for his fine words, and I would like to call on Richard Porter to close up the case for him.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Phil, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. If I may, I'd like to start by passing some comments on the edifices that are the focal point of this debate, namely the Hamilton Building and the Arts Block. Now, the Hamilton Building, as was alluded to by our colleague here, is not much to look at from the outside, but it's a building built for practical purposes. It has fantastic labs, lovely offices, great lecture theatres, nice space, and plenty of good sunlight. But it also commemorates a great mathematician, William Rowan Hamilton, and that's a very important thing. Scientists respect their colleagues, and it stands for something, the Hamilton Building. Au contraire, the Arts Block. What's that all about? Arts Block reminds me of some painter who's lacking inspiration. When you look at the Arts Block from the outside, what does it look like? It looks like the hanging gardens of Babylon with some granny flats on top. You look inside, all you see are dark cocoons, very dark places. It's clear to me what's gone wrong here with my colleagues. They're all suffering from vitamin D deficiency. Anyway, you're going to need somebody from the Hamilton on this boat when the floods subside and the new society begins. You need engineers to build hospitals, sewage systems, affordable housing at last, and hospitals. You'll need medics, nurses, pharmacists to fill those hospitals, to care for your sick and your old. You'll also need some oceanographers, geologists, and climatologists to help you predict the next flood or earthquake that's going to happen. So science brings so much to society. Science helps explain the everyday. Why does the weather change from day to day, season to season? Why do we need oxygen to live? There's a real conversation stopper at a dinner party. What drives us to procreate? That's a real conversation starter at a dinner party. Indeed, through scientific understanding of reproduction and the development of the use of contraception, society has been transformed. Through achievements in science and medicine and vaccination, people live longer, healthier lives. Science has rid us of smallpox and has come up with new cures for cancers and diabetes. Gone are the days when we treated people with mental illness as being possessed by the devil. Science has taught us to understand people's condition and treat them with compassion. To paraphrase the great Nobel laureate Max Perutz, the survival of nature and civilization itself depends on the intelligent and scrupulous application of science and an understanding of how nature works. In science, truth always wins. So what about the world of science I work in? Well, it's biochemistry. It explains the fundamentals of life, explains how energy from the sun gets transferred into biochemicals full of energy, how we then eat those biochemicals and fill ourselves full of energy and live. So essentially, biochemistry explains the essence of life. Biochemistry also explains how we grow and how we die. It's used to diagnose problems and help monitor health. I myself do a lot of research, and one of my favourite projects is on thoroughbred horses and the speed gene. So yes, I have insider knowledge, lads. Big Ben in the 230 at Leopardstown. But it's just an amazing world to be in. And again, I have projects on diabetes, cancer, thrombosis. It's such a fundamental science and such an interesting world to be in. So I'm not going to delay you too longer now because I think I've come towards the end. And I'm going to finally leave you with the words of Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, who I think encapsulate what I really want to say. Biochemistry, that is what we are. No one in between. How can we be wrong? Sail away with me to another world, and we rely on each other. Aha.
I'd like to thank Richard for his fine speech, and I'd like to call on Honorary Patron as the devil's advocate to argue that no building should be saved.
Yesterday, I put on some reasonably comfy shoes and I made a poster and I went out and walked, admittedly with the Maynooth Students' Union because I was late and didn't get to walk with Trinity Students' Union, to get more funding for third level so that you guys could continue to get paid the incredible amount of money that you get paid for talking to us every week. And I think right now that was potentially not the best use of my time.
Hear, hear.
There's a flood. Who do we save? Are we going for our friends in the Hamilton or our pals in the Arts Block? And I suppose I should caveat the fact that I suppose my natural inclinations, to an extent, are to save the Arts Block. I am a law and political science student. Fortunately, though, I spent the last week doing job applications for jobs that'll never accept me. So my feelings of positivity towards the Arts Block are pretty much at an all-time low. As for the Hamilton, again, I've got a certain kind of natural sympathy and pity for my friends down at the Hamilton end of campus. This is partly because my own parents are scientists. I am the progeny of a pair of microbiologists, and the disappointment in their faces when I told them that the first thing on my CAO was law pol and the second thing was English and history, I really cannot even begin to describe. The first words out of my dad's mouth were, "Are there any facts in either of those degrees?" To which the obvious response was, of course, there is not. But you know, I do love my parents, but after years and years, when you grow up with microbiologists, I have never eaten a meal in my family home without being told exactly what bacteria are in every single bit of the food that I'm eating. One of my earliest memories is my mother turning to me, I think I was about 3, and saying, "Hannah, there are more bacterial cells in your body than there are human ones. You are more bacteria than you are you." And if that does not cause an existential crisis, I do not know what does. So I say, let it all burn, let it all drown. We do not want to save either of these buildings. Let's be realistic. The second, I don't know, the bells start ringing. Do we have an early flood warning running scheme? I'm not really sure. But the second that happens, I'm getting into a kayak, which I will steal from somewhere towards the Hamilton. To be fair, that's where you keep those. And I'm going straight over to UCD. I'm grabbing several ag students, and then I'm taken for the hills. Because realistically, none of the people here have any of the practical skills that are needed to survive. So I'm going to go down through this chronologically because I think that's probably the most straightforward, but also critically, it's the way I've written my notes, and I've had several glasses of wine. So first, from the Hamilton, we have John, the mathematician. And I actually don't want to be too mean to John. This is partly because John himself does not want to survive. And I'm not sure by what process you decided to study maths and to dedicate your life to it, but I'm so sorry. And secondly, I don't want to be too mean to John because the most recent and relevant cultural reference he could come up with was Jedward. thereby nailing every single stereotype that I had in my mind about what a maths professor would be. So then, representing the arts block, we had Matthew, who I think was reading some sort of presidential stump speech that didn't get used in the debate last night. And I really wish that you had been doing the debate. I didn't watch it because I did enough political science in first to third year to know that we're fucked. I did not need to watch the debate to know that. But we're told that it's important to remember Prometheus Bound. And the note that I've made next to writing that down is, I'm not entirely sure. Realistically, when the world comes to an end and everything is washed away terribly, the first thing I'm going to want is a kebab. Because in my head, I imagine that a post-apocalyptic landscape is similar to being incredibly hungover. And I'm pretty sure that being reminded of a man having his organs plucked out by an eagle is the last thing that's going to help me enjoy this kebab that I am going to find in this post-apocalyptic landscape. Because the second bit of my plan was actually to kayak to Athlone, which I assume is going to be fine because it's pretty post-apocalyptic as it is. I will say though, Matthew had one line that really stuck with me, which is we have no more need for bad poetry. And I'm involved in publications this year. I'm editing the Piranha, and my sworn enemies are Icarus because they think that just because all I do is write shit jokes and make repeat articles that we ran 2 years ago because no one can remember them, and they get poems that they're really special. So yeah, I'm with you, Matthew. Fuck you, Icarus. Yeah. And then for the Hamilton, we had Sylvia, which was delightfully like watching a CBeebies program, really, wasn't it? There was colours. And I'm just going to make a note now that the phone that's timing me has just locked, so I don't know where I'm at, and I'm just going to keep going till I'm done, again, taking my inspiration from Sylvia. And again, there was parts of Sylvia's speech where, again, I was having major flashbacks to childhood, and that, again, we didn't get toys, we got lots of sodium bicarbonate and vinegar, and we made loads of volcanoes, and that was my childhood, and that was nice, but, I also would really have enjoyed having one of those Barbie head things so that I could have learned to do something with my flogging hair. So, thanks, Sylvia. Mom. But then the line that really... So I will say, in fairness to Sylvia, her cultural reference of Frozen was that little bit more relevant than Jedward, which we'd heard earlier on the table in the Hamilton. But I think the line that tells us that we should not save the people of chemistry was the incredibly sinister, and this almost slipped in through all the whimsy and the blue and the smoke, which was, I can make gunpowder. That is the last thing we want when society has broken down. So speaking then of society breaking down and politics and political science, of course, to give it its proper term. And I think it's curious that Peter or Dr. Stone, first of all, clearly marked out the fact that he's not in the arts block because, politics is a real science, guys. We can quantify this. We can quantify human behaviour. There's a good 3 minutes. And after the 2 years of lectures, 3 if you include the statistics module that I was awake for most of last year, about learning about how exactly politics is a real science and it is a real science, like, no, not entirely. So I think that any argument to save someone that's based on we've nearly figured it out, in the grand scheme of things, we're probably going to be better off leaving you in the floodwaters. It's not a personal thing. It's just that we're probably going to get one go in terms of making this big society, and you didn't manage it last time. Look, the main point of your argument was that Britain and the US is happening, and I think that is exactly the reason that we probably don't need any political scientists, because they told us that Brexit wouldn't happen. And then it did, and now I can't go to work in Britain, probably because I'm a dirty immigrant now. So thanks, guys. No thank you, political science. So then we moved on to Jim and the shameless attempt at flattery, and also a really lovely song. And for the first bit of the song, I was thinking, nah, I definitely really don't want this. Like, a man singing at me when all of my friends are dead is just probably not going to cheer me up.
Well, you do. Yes, you do.
But by the third verse, I was kind of getting into it. But then the fourth verse happened. And I went back to my original position. And I recently got a job in the library, and I was put in the John Stern Medical Library, just so that the people there can see people from the outside. And I really love the idea that there are interesting doctors, and that there are scientists who can sing. And my own dad, the microbiologist, is a very active member from One Musical Society, to be fair to him. But, I've been in the library now for 2 weeks. They're all very poor crack, and most of them are incapable of putting books back on shelves. So, no thank you. They do not laugh when you fall off the little stool things when you're reaching the top shelves. They also don't offer to help, which I thought was an oath that you guys were supposed to take. So And frankly, the diagrams in the books, when I accidentally occasionally open them, are terrifying, and I think we'll all be better off, again, in this horrible new world where everything that we know has been ruined or is at least very damp, not really knowing how our insides look, because it's terrifying, and we're not going to need that. Also, look, there's probably going to be enough rotting bodies around, and we'll have a fairly good idea. We don't want anyone to explain it to us. We can just make up some bizarre myth to explain it. So that brings us then to Dara and the English and German section of the evening. And I thought it was interesting that Dara said that he was here, it was unusual, that he wished he hadn't come because he had 3 hours of sleep and was in shite form, as if this was unusual for an English lecturer. Are of course famed for their healthy lifestyles and cheery dispositions. So then, a significant portion of Dara's pitch to get on the raft. The first bit was the fact that he can climb stairs. Useful enough, you can move from the 4th to the 6th floor. But I think we're going to need more in terms of practical skills. If you actually, we can all that's just squatting, right? Except kind of movement. Most of us can figure that out. I broke my leg earlier this year and I can do that now. So I really, I don't think you're bringing anything special. You also use the word technologist, which I don't think is a real word, which causes me to question your actual credentials as an English professor. And then you started quoting poetry at length, thus confirming that you were basically every shit arts block lad that you've ever been on a crappy date with. Any irritating man you've been stuck chatting to at a party who's trying to be profound. And that is not what I want, either in rebuilding my new utopia, Hannahland, or in a world where we're all going to die in a couple of minutes, where, to be honest, I don't think I want any of you guys around. Well, of course not. I'm the devil's advocate. I'm not supposed to want any of you here. And then lastly, for the Hamilton, we had Richard, who spoke first about the fact that the Hamilton was named after a person. And just, grand. Like, I suppose if we save the Hamilton, we'll save the memory of a mathematician. Not convincing enough for me. Also, just as a fun aside in terms of my own stupidity, for an embarrassing length of time, I thought that the musical Hamilton was in fact about the mathematician, and I thought, not listening to that. So then he told us that scientists respect their colleagues, which I thought was amusing given the number of women who've never gotten Nobel Prizes for their work. Just, you know, gonna drop in a little bit of the edgy bit of the debate there, except it's not edgy, it's just true life. And that does not suit the world that I want to create, this lovely kebab utopia in Athlone. But then you did quote Dolly Parton, then I kind of did a timeline in my head, and obviously it's difficult to really assess the true cultural relevance of all of the references that the Hamilton representatives used to try to relate to us all. But I'm just not sure if it really cuts it, if it's going to tip you in over the edge. So ultimately, guys, here we are. We're getting to rebuild. We're getting to get rid of the people who give you a 68 when you think you deserve a 69, or who calm down, Manus, calm down. Or who give you a 55 and like, I could have sworn that I just scraped the 2-1 there, which is my own personal experience. We're getting rid of people who insist that you turn up for seminars. We're getting rid of people who are constantly telling you that you're just not quite good enough, but then at the same time that you also will be employed. Look, guys, to be honest, I actually think that you're all probably very nice people. I enjoyed you all on an interpersonal level. But when we are rebuilding the world, I really just don't think that you guys are going to make that cut. Let them drown, ladies and gentlemen. Let them drown. Thank you very much.